Once upon a time, there were two sisters, Tam and Cam, who were half-sisters with the same father but different mothers. They were close in age. Tam was the daughter of the first wife, while Cam was the daughter of the second wife. Tam's mother had passed away when she was still very young. A few years later, Tam's father also passed away. Tam lived with her stepmother, who was Cam's mother. However, her stepmother was a very cruel woman. Every day, Tam had to work tirelessly, herding buffaloes, carrying water, cutting sweet potatoes, collecting duckweed, and even husking rice late into the night. Yet her work was never done. Meanwhile, Cam was spoiled by her mother, dressed in fine clothes, and never had to do any hard labor, spending her days idling at home. One day, the stepmother gave each of the two sisters a basket and told them to go to the field to catch shrimp and small fish. She promised, "Whoever fills their basket first will get a red silk bodice as a reward." When they reached the field, Tam, who was already skilled in catching crabs and snails, quickly filled her basket with shrimp and fish in just one morning. Meanwhile, Cam leisurely wandered from one field to another, wasting time, and by late afternoon she still hadn't caught anything. Seeing that Tam had a full basket, Cam slyly said, "Sister Tam, your hair is dirty. You should dive deep into the water to wash it, or else Mother will scold you when we get home." Believing her, Tam stepped into the pond and waded into the deeper water to wash herself. Taking advantage of the moment, Cam quickly dumped all of Tam's shrimp into her own basket and ran home as fast as she could. When Tam got out of the water, she found her basket empty. She sat down and covered her face, crying bitterly. At that moment, the Buddha was sitting on his lotus throne when he suddenly heard Tam's cries. He appeared before her and asked, "My child, why are you crying?" Tam tearfully explained everything to the Buddha. After listening, Buddha gently said, "Stop crying, my child. Look into your basket and see if anything is left." Tam looked inside and replied, "There is only a goby left." The Buddha then instructed, "Take that goby fish home and release it into the well. Each day, when you are supposed to eat 3 bowls of rice, eat only 2 bowls and save 1 for the goby. When feeding it, remember to call out these words: Goby, 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 goby. Come up and eat my golden rice and silver rice. Do not eat the stale rice and thin porridge of others." If you don't call exactly like this, the goby won't come up. Remember it well. After speaking, the Buddha disappeared. Tam followed his instructions and released the goby fish into the well. From that day on, at every meal, she set aside some rice and secretly brought it out for the goby. Each time she called, the goby would rise to the surface and eat the rice she dropped into the water. Over time, Tam and the goby grew close, and the goby grew bigger and bigger. Noticing that Tam always took rice to the well after meals, her stepmother became suspicious. She ordered Cam to spy on her. Hiding behind a bush near the well, Cam watched as Tam called for the goby. She memorized the chant and later reported everything to her mother. That night, the stepmother devised a plan. She told Tam, "My child, the village has started restricting grazing in nearby fields. Tomorrow, when you take the buffaloes out to graze, you must go far away. If you graze them in the village fields, they might be confiscated." Tam obediently agreed. The next morning, she led the buffaloes to a distant field, just as her stepmother had instructed. While Tam was away, Cam's mother carried a bowl of rice to the well. She called out to the goby just as Tam had. Hearing the familiar chant, the goby fish surfaced. The wicked stepmother was waiting and immediately caught it, took it home, and cooked it for a meal. That evening, when Tam brought the buffaloes home, she set aside some rice as usual and went to the well to feed the goby fish. She called out, but the goby fish did not surface like before. She kept calling and calling, but in the end, only a clump of blood rose to the water's surface. Realizing that something terrible had happened to the goby fish, Tam burst into tears. The Buddha appeared and asked, "My child, why are you crying?" Tam tearfully explained what had happened, but gently said, "Your goby has been caught and eaten." "But don't cry. Go home and collect its bones. Find 4 small jars, put the bones inside, and bury them under the 4 legs of your bed. Tam went home and searched for the gobi's bones as the Buddha had instructed. She looked everywhere, in the corners of the yard and around the garden, but could not find them. Seeing this, a chicken nearby clucked and said, "Cluck, cluck! Give me a handful of rice and I'll dig up the bones for you." Tam quickly grabbed a handful of rice and tossed it to the chicken. The chicken ran into the kitchen, scratched the ground for a while, and soon uncovered the bones. Tam carefully collected them, placed them in 4 small jars, and buried them under the 4 legs of her bed, just as the Buddha had instructed. A short time later, the king organized a grand festival that lasted several days and nights. People of all ages, both men and women from various villages, eagerly set out to attend. The roads were crowded with people dressed in their finest clothes, flowing toward the capital like a river. Cam and her mother also prepared beautiful outfits to join the festivities. Seeing that Tam also wanted to go, the stepmother sneered. She then poured a basket of rice mixed with husked grain and said to Tam, "You must finish separating this rice before you go anywhere. Don't leave it unfinished. If you don't complete it, there will be nothing to cook for dinner, and I will punish you." Tam sat down to sort the rice and grain, but after a while she became anxious, wondering when she would ever finish. Feeling hopeless, she began to cry. At that moment, the Buddha appeared and asked, "My child, why are you crying?" Tam pointed to the basket and said, "My stepmother told me I must separate the rice from the grain before I can go to the festival, but by the time I finish, the festival will already be over." The Buddha gently said, "Do not cry. Take the basket and place it in the middle of the yard. I will send sparrows to help you sort it." Tam hesitated and asked, "But what if the sparrows eat the rice? Then I will still be punished when I return." The Buddha reassured her, "Just tell them this. Sparrows, sparrows, come help me sort. If you eat even 1 grain, I will punish you. They will not eat your rice, so do not worry." Suddenly, from the sky, a flock of sparrows swooped down and began sorting the rice and grain. They chirped and fluttered about, working quickly. In just a short while, they had finished the task without leaving a single grain out of place. But once the sparrows flew away, Tam began to cry again. The Buddha appeared once more and asked, "My child, why are you crying now?" Tam replied, "I am dressed in rags. They won't let me into the festival like this." The Buddha smiled and said, "Dig up the jars of gobi's bones that you buried earlier, and you will find everything you need for the festival." Tam did as she was told and dug up the jars. In the first jar, she found a beautiful layered outfit, a silk robe, a red silk bodice, and a fine embroidered scarf. In the second jar, she discovered a pair of exquisite embroidered shoes. In the third jar, there was a tiny horse, but as soon as she placed it on the ground, it neighed loudly and transformed into a real horse. In the fourth jar, she found a set of elegant saddle and reins. Overjoyed, Tam bathed, dressed in the fine clothes, and mounted the horse. She rode swiftly toward the capital. At that very moment, the royal procession arrived at the stream. The 2 imperial elephants leading the way suddenly planted their tusks into the ground and let out loud trumpeting cries, refusing to move forward. The king, sensing something unusual, ordered his soldiers to search the water. They quickly discovered the embroidered shoe that Tam had lost earlier. The king admired the shoe closely, unable to take his eyes off it. "What a delicate and beautiful shoe," he thought. "The woman who fits this shoe must be extraordinarily beautiful." Without hesitation, he issued a royal decree. All the women attending the festival must come forward to try on this shoe. Whoever it fits shall become my wife. The festival erupted in excitement as women and girls eagerly rushed to try their luck. One by one, they entered a pavilion set up in the middle of the festival grounds to try on the shoe. Yet none of them could make it fit. Among the hopefuls were Cam and her mother. As they stepped out of the pavilion, they spotted Tam approaching. Cam nudged her mother and whispered, "Mother, look! Isn't that Tam? She's going to try on the shoe, too!" Her stepmother sneered and scoffed. "That wretched girl? Even a grand bronze bell couldn't ring loud enough to be noticed. How could a tiny, broken pot left by the bamboo fence matter?" But when Tam slipped her foot into the shoe, it fit perfectly, as if it were made just for her. She then unwrapped her silk scarf and took out the second shoe, placing it on her other foot. The two shoes matched exactly. The royal attendants cheered in excitement. Without delay, the king ordered his maidens to escort Tam to the palace. Tam was carried into the royal carriage under the shocked and envious gazes of Cam and her mother. Although Tam lived a life of luxury in the palace, she never forgot the anniversary of her father's death. She asked the king for permission to return home and prepare offerings for her father's memorial. Cam and her mother saw how happy Tam was and became envious and resentful. When they heard that Tam was going back, their jealousy flared up once again. The stepmother came up with a plan and told Tam, "You used to climb the betel nut tree. Why don't you climb up and pick a bunch of betel nuts for your father's offering?" Tam obediently climbed the tree. As she reached the top to pick the betel nuts, the stepmother stood below with a machete, striking the base of the tree. Feeling the tree shake, Tam called down, "What are you doing at the base of the tree?" The stepmother replied, "There are ants at the base of the tree, and I'm driving them away so they don't bite you." After Tam died, she transformed into a golden-winged bird. The bird flew straight to the capital and landed in the royal garden. There, she saw Cam washing the king's clothes at the well. The golden-winged bird perched on a tree branch and called out to her, "Hang my husband's shirt on the pole, not on the fence, or it will tear my husband's shirt." The bird then flew directly to the palace and perched on a windowsill, singing beautifully. Wherever the king went, the bird followed him. The king, who still longed for Tam, heard the bird singing sweetly and, feeling its affectionate presence, said, "Golden-winged bird, are you my wife? Come into my sleeve." The golden-winged bird flew over and landed in the king's hand, snuggling into the sleeve of his robe. The king, filled with joy, forgot to eat and sleep. He ordered a golden cage to be made for the bird. From then on, the king was so captivated by the bird that he ignored Cam entirely. Cam hurried home to tell her mother. Her mother advised her to catch the bird and cook it to eat, then make up a story to tell the king. Back at the palace, while the king was away, Cam caught the golden-winged bird, cooked it, and threw its feathers in the garden. When the king returned and noticed the bird was missing, he asked what had happened. Cam replied, "I am pregnant, and I was craving bird meat, so I secretly killed and ate the bird, Your Majesty." The king didn't say anything. However, the feathers of the golden-winged bird buried in the garden transformed into two beautiful fringe trees. When the king visited the royal garden, the branches and leaves of the trees drooped down, forming a shade so thick it resembled two umbrellas. The king, impressed by the trees, ordered his attendants to set up a hammock between them and rest there in the shade. Whenever the king left, the branches would straighten up again. From then on, the king spent every day relaxing in the shade of these trees. When Cam found out, she went back home to tell her mother. Her mother suggested that she have the trees cut down to make a loom, and then again make up a lie to tell the king. One day, when there was a storm, Cam instructed the workers to cut down the trees and use the wood to build a loom. When the king saw the trees being chopped, he asked what was happening. Cam replied, "The trees were knocked down by the storm. I ordered the workers to cut them down to make a loom to weave clothes for you, Your Majesty." However, when the loom was finished and Cam sat down to weave, she kept hearing the loom curse her with the following words, "Kot ka kot ket, you stole my husband. Now I will gouge out your eyes." Seeing this, Cam was frightened and immediately went home to tell her mother. Her mother advised her to burn the loom and scatter the ashes far away to ensure peace of mind. When Cam returned to the palace, she followed her mother's instructions. She took the burnt ashes and threw them along the roadside, far from the palace. From the ashes by the road, a large Diospyros decandra tree grew. When it bore fruit, the tree only produced one fruit, but its fragrance spread everywhere. One day, an old woman selling water nearby walked under the tree. She smelled the sweet fragrance, looked up, and saw the fruit hanging high on the branch. She then raised her basket and muttered, "Diospyros decandra fruit, fall into my basket. I will sniff you, but not eat you." As soon as the old woman finished speaking, the Diospyros decandra fruit fell directly into her basket. She carefully took it home and stored it in her room, often going in to admire and sniff its delightful fragrance. Every day, the old woman went to the market. From inside the Diospyros decandra fruit, a tiny girl as small as a finger would emerge. But in the blink of an eye, she transformed into Tam. As soon as Tam stepped out, she would grab a broom and clean the house, then go to the garden to pick vegetables, cook rice, and make soup to help the old woman. Afterward, Tam would shrink back to her small form and return into the Diospyros decandra fruit shell. Each time the old woman returned from the market, she would find the house tidy, the rice delicious, and the soup sweet, which puzzled her. One day, the old woman pretended to go to the market, but halfway there, she secretly turned back and hid behind a bush near the house. Meanwhile, Tam emerged from the Diospyros decandra fruit and began her usual chores. The old woman quietly peeped through a crack in the door. When she saw the beautiful girl, she was overjoyed and suddenly burst through the door, throwing her arms around Tam and tearing apart the jackfruit shell. From then on, Tam lived with the old woman, and they loved each other like mother and daughter. Every day, Tam helped the old woman with tasks like cooking rice, making water, wrapping cakes, and preparing betel leaves, allowing the old woman to sit and sell her goods. One day, the king went out of the palace for a walk. He saw a clean water stall by the road and decided to stop. The old woman brought some betel and water to offer to the king. When the king saw the betel with the phoenix wing decoration, he suddenly remembered the betel that his wife used to prepare in the same way. He then asked, "Who made this betel?" "This betel was made by my daughter," the old woman replied. "Where is your daughter? Call her out so I can see her face." The old woman called Tam out. As soon as Tam appeared, the king immediately recognized her as his wife from before, though she seemed even younger and more beautiful. The king was overjoyed and asked the old woman to explain the situation. He then ordered his servants to bring a palanquin to take Tam back to the palace. When Cam saw that Tam had returned and was loved by the king as before, she became fearful. One day, Cam asked her sister, Sister Tam, how did you become so beautiful?" Tam did not answer directly, but instead replied, "Do you want to be beautiful? I can help you." Cam eagerly agreed. Tam ordered the servants to dig a deep hole and boil a pot of hot water. Tam told Cam to go down into the hole and then had the servants pour the hot water into her. Cam died. Tam ordered that her body be made into pickled fish and placed in a jar, which she sent to her stepmother, claiming it was a gift from Cam. The stepmother believed it and ate the pickled fish, praising how delicious it was every day. A crow flew from somewhere and perched on the roof, calling out, "Delicious! So delicious! Mother ate her own child. Do you still have any for me?" The stepmother became furious, scolding loudly and chasing the crow with a pole. But when the pickled fish was almost finished, she peered into the jar and saw her daughter's skull. She collapsed and died on the spot.